Thanks everyone for joining today. The amazing title of this panel webinar is Planning for a Rebound During a Market Pause. And just a little bit of history back about that. When we originally talked about this panel, it was about 45 days ago when the market was in a very different place. Things are starting to turn now, and the group of people we pulled together have a much more positive and optimistic view of the market for advertising and marketing agencies and various kind of cohorts that we have. So we want to bring people together, talk a little bit about the opportunities that we are seeing, and share those with you and answer any questions you might have. So before we kick it off, I want to say thanks to Media Temple and the Agency Partner Program for hosting this and supporting us on this. And something you should definitely look into. It's a very valuable tool for agencies. From there, what I'd like to do is let the panel introduce themselves, and then we'll get rolling. I see Brady first. Brady, would you like to go?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Brady Hurt. I'm co-founder of Obsidian. I handle everything on the digital and experience design and development side of our company. Essentially, what we do is we consult agencies from a digital design and production standpoint for conceptual executions, and then we make sure that they're providing feasibility, consultative insights as to different technologies that could be employed, and so on. And then once you get time to find the right partner, potentially that is external, to help you bring it to life, either through design and development or just through one of those pieces and competencies. I act as basically a matchmaker to help facilitate the creation and execute on those ideas. And that's what I've been doing for the past 12 years.
Thanks. Vincent, would you like to go?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join. This is Vincent Geraghty, head of production at Ogilvy USA. I manage cross-platform production for that group. I've been with Ogilvy for about 2 years. Prior to that, a stint as head of production for Publicis Communications, and then before that, head of production for Leo Burnett. Nice to be joining this panel, and again, thanks for the time.
I see John next.
Hey guys, I'm John Harris. I'm the CEO of Worldwide Partners, which is a global network of independent advertising marketing services agencies. I think the best way to think about us is as a reverse holding company model. So rather than us acquiring agencies and owning the agencies, all of our agencies remain independent, and the agencies actually own the network. So my accountability is to board of directors of agency leaders around the globe to work collectively to set the strategy for the network. We've got 70 agencies in 40 countries, and doing work in B2C, significant work in travel and tourism, which is a little bit on the slow side right now, and B2B and in healthcare. So our agencies join our network to gain access to best practices and learnings, which have been pretty powerful over the last couple of months, and then also to have multinational scale without the time and expense and risk of opening up offices around the globe.
Thanks. And last but not least, Mr. Tom Beck.
Hi, thank you, Josh. Welcome, everyone. I'm Tom Beck. I'm Executive Director at Soda, and we're similar to John and the crew at Worldwide Partners with a little bit of difference. So Soda is a community as well of digital agency founders and owners, but we're a member-based organization focused primarily on thought leadership, best practices, collaboration, and kind of communication amongst our partner agencies. We have about 100 members in 20 countries. And really thrilled to be on the call today. And big thanks to Media Temple for hosting this. We really appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Tom. So a lot of questions came in prior to the panel. I really appreciate all of those. We were able to bucket those, some pretty good themes there. And one of the themes that came up most was around what do we do next? What do we change? And kind of the pivot required to adapt to the current market, and not just near term, but looking forward into the beyond as well. So John, the other day we were having a conversation. John Harris had a really unique perspective on that. Thought it'd be great for him to kick off with that, just his thoughts in that area, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So pivot, right, seems to be the term du jour. And I will say this, and I think anyone who's tried to pivot realizes that pivots are tough. And I don't think any agency can make a 180-degree pivot. So if you are an experiential agency and you're seeing the rise in e-commerce, you can't make a credible pivot to e-com. Or if you are, a full-service agency with core expertise in tech, you can't credibly pivot into CPG, right? Because CPG seems to be doing okay during this time frame. So I think if you're looking to pivot, I think the first place you need to start is what is a service offering or a target expertise or client expertise, category expertise that you have that you can lean into, right? If you're going to pivot, you first and foremost have to pivot from a position of strength. Because you don't have the credibility to just become something that you aren't. And so I think that, if you are an agency that has work in automotive, and automotive is not really doing that well right now. How can you look to other models that would be comparable, right? So do I look at multi-unit retail? Do I look at franchise space to start to leverage that capability and expertise I have in working with the tiered system into other categories? So you have to evaluate your position of strength, whether that's a service offering or a category experience. Match those up with the categories that are thriving, right? And the services that are thriving. E-com is certainly one that is exploding right now. I'm a little over the word digital transformation, but I think that the trends in e-commerce are accelerating. So if you've got a position of strength there, I would lean into it. But I think ultimately you have to start with something that you're good at, and then what are clients willing to pay for during this time frame. And I think to that end, realizing that the fee models and the scope of works that we're getting now are going to be very, very different. Embracing this shorter day, perhaps 90-day project that has not as broad or as deep as a project, and maybe not as large a fee, but being adaptable to saying, hey, we're going to do a sprint for you over the next 90 days because you have some immediate needs that you need to work on. So I think pivoting in relation to how we look at opportunities and how we price ourselves is certainly a rich area for everyone to be exploring.
Thanks. No, I think that makes a ton of sense. And, in talking about the pivot and those models, that's going to affect your resourcing. Like you said, it's going to affect pricing, and, we'll definitely cover a little bit of that. Tom, if you could help us out, thinking of Soda and your network of digital agencies, everyone's saying everything's going digital. We've all been saying that for a long time, but now more than ever, they're saying, that we need to be digital. So in theory, your entire network should be booming, but I know from conversations with you, it's not. So if you could give us a little bit of a glimpse into, where those opportunities are, which things are taking off and which things are seeing a bit of a lag, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting because everything is digital, implies that there's loads of opportunity there, but because everything is digital, it's also impacted by, economic ups and downs. In our membership, when we say digital, they're digitally native agencies, but they span specialties like experiential or production or marketing and advertising and consulting or, digital, just pure digital experience design or digital product design. So there's a wide range of, niches that are reflected in from our membership. Just because you're digital doesn't inoculate you against the current downturn. So our members who, had heavy concentrations in travel and hospitality have been impacted. We have members who were 100% experiential agencies. Many of those projects, have ground to a halt in the short term, because public spaces and, public gatherings and events are closed down. Long term, obviously, all of our members are very bullish on whatever aspect of the digital kind of value chain they operate in. And we're seeing, I would say, if you take the industry focus out of it, where you might be focused from an industry perspective, just from a pure capabilities perspective, we're still seeing lots of work in just pure digital communications. Digital advertising is taking a short-term hit, but relatively speaking, less so than traditional advertising. And, coming out on the other end of this, we think that the allocation numbers to digital advertising relative to traditional advertising will continue to tilt in that way. Digital product design or digital experience design, and I agree with John that the term digital transformation is a little tired. In fact, in the global digital outlook study we did, about 70% of agencies said that they're working on digital transformation initiatives. So that to me implies that the term is probably way too broad, because I know that many of these agencies don't work on true digital transformation. But I think anything e-commerce related, anything related to, we'll just call it, say, digital enablement. So anything that uses digital technology that can make your product better, that can make your customer service experience better, that can make a business operationally a little more, efficient. All of those initiatives have been, proceeding, significantly. And if anything, I would say our agencies concentrated in those areas of like digital enablement, even outside of just pure marketing and advertising, have really been thriving.
Awesome, thanks. And I love digital enablement. So if someone could quote him on LinkedIn and go ahead and give him credit, that'd be great. Brady, quick question for you while we're talking in that space. You overlap with Tom a little bit as far as the type of agencies and groups that you work with. What have you been seeing and hearing? But again, saying more of what do people think? What do they think is going to happen in the next 3, 6, 9 months? What are the opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think I sit in an interesting kind of segment of everybody on this panel, as I'm usually in touch with folks when it's time to actually try to execute on some of the concepts that they've sold through to their end clients. And with my roster of shops, I'm kind of spread across multiple different disciplines between interactive sound design, experiential, hardcore platform and enterprise level design development, more straight UX focused. So I get to see kind of a wide swath, especially because I also collaborate with hundreds of agencies across the US. So I see a few hundred briefs a year. And I would say that over the last few months, and where it seems to be shifting is, I think it took a few months for people to kind of change their gaze at how they approach the market and what the right temperament is and what type of tactics they could explore implementing. And I think what we're coming back to on our end with the shops that I work with and the briefs that I see is that there's kind of a reawakening of some really older, like tried and true executional methods, which are going to be richer web experiences that maybe take that opportunity where you can't have somebody physically touch your product, but you can actually give them a richer, more immersive product experience that allows them to not only explore its benefits better without having to have maybe a sales associate that's trained with explaining that, and actually go deeper into that and let them learn at their own pace about the product and do their own kind of due diligence on products before they buy them, or a service that's offered. And then depending on what that is, taking that a step further leads to customization and presenting a sense of ownership over different products and services and offerings that brands have through those web experiences that then kind of translate into new opportunities to create kind of earned media opportunities even out of that through the customization opportunities that exist. I think, and in addition to kind of those web experiences, also seeing a massive uptick into people trying to shift to a wider audience beyond just an experiential setup. How do we move this into a virtual representation, or how do we start leveraging real-time graphics engines that are typically used and reserved for the gaming industry? So getting deeper into Unreal, which I don't know if you guys saw the Unreal 5 demo that came out a few weeks back, but the opportunities that exist there for doing richer, deeper experiences that still involve the community and bringing people together in a virtual environment to experience, a brand or something tertiary to a brand that they want to support in a campaign effort that agencies develop is totally feasible. And that within that, there's also opportunities for AR. Web AR has become a lot more capable and feasible now through different opportunities that are enabled within Google Chrome and Safari. So I think where I see this kind of going is, I think some of these tools that have existed for years are going to get kind of a renaissance of sorts. And I think that if we start moving people towards accepting those platforms, which they're already on, and the numbers show that they're comfortable interacting with, and it's ubiquitous behavior, I think we can kind of bridge some of that gap that we might be seeing right now from the more traditional executional flow.
No, thanks for that, Brady. The thing so between John, Tom, and Brady, one of the things I'm hearing is to offer these new services or these adapted services to our clients, we're definitely going to have to be better listeners as agency partners to our clients. You're going to have to know more about their business beyond the brief, and be able to go to them proactively and say, we think there's an opportunity for you to gain reach, growth, better relationships through this technology, this website, this app, this experience, whatever that might be. So I think it's continuing to adapt ourselves and maybe step away from how we've sold ourselves in the past and be more confident in our knowledge of the client and their business itself. So, going on to Vincent, knowing that, being better listeners, what are you hearing on the production side? What have clients been asking for, and what do you think the evolution of that looks like?
Well, I mean, I think just first to kind of tack on to what Brady was talking about, I think there's going to be an evolution of what we're actually doing that is not just a temporary thing. I think we all know there's going to be a new normal moving forward. One of those, I think the experience piece that Brady was just mentioning, I was working on a big experience in London right before before the lockdown hit. I was actually in London March 14th and traveled back that day while I was prepping this big experience we were building. It was pretty obvious 2, 3, 4 weeks before that March 14th date, we were not going to be going live. Things were continuing to cancel. And Radical Media, the company we were working with, had done some work in Unity, a gaming platform, on a virtual experience. It was really to walk through the CEO of this company what the experience is going to be, because it's very difficult to show somebody a build-out experience at this scale. I think it was about 50,000 square feet until it's actually done. So a walkthrough of something that's complete, 2 months before it goes live is next to impossible. So we started building this virtual experience and walkthrough really as a wireframe to just try to get a user flow for people who weren't going to attend it but needed to approve the event. I think that's going to take on a stronger piece, and I think we saw that happening as we started to get more towards the cancellation, that VR and a virtual experience was probably going to be as important, if not more important, than the actual experience, which is now scheduled for March 2021, April 2021. So I think it's interesting the way that we're being forced to pivot and to come up with new solutions for clients and what clients are asking for. And the environment we're living in is guiding it. I mean, this is so unprecedented, and we hear that over and over and over, but I feel like it's not unused, because who would have ever thought we would have had such a lockdown brought on by anything for this level of time? So it is, everybody's treading new areas and new places to go. But I think from a production standpoint, there's been some really good work done in the parameters we can do work in right now. But things are getting tired. I mean, there's only so many Zoom conference calls you can put back up in a marketing message and have them be effective. Facebook has done some really, really nice stuff. I think the Facebook Messenger work that Burnett did with Michel Gondry is kind of pushing that envelope for me of where you can take these sort of things from a remote standpoint. But it is going to be, the requests are going to start coming in from clients as far as what are we going to do next. And I think it's up to us as industry leaders to be kind of proactive in handing out those solutions. So it's an awful lot of stuff I just threw at you, but the bottom line, there's massive shift, massive change. It's needed, and I think we're just getting to the point of coming up with solutions and answers.
Thanks for that. So quick question coming out of all of those, excuse me, is, we've talked about what does pivot really mean, the opportunity there. We've talked about some of the project types that we do see on the horizon or currently available that we could go after. The question then, we've also read a lot about the human toll that we've had within the industry and the tens of thousands of layoffs. So these things need to get made. how are we going to make them, and what do the resource models start to look like? And I'm going to leave that open. So feel free to step on each other and hop in as needed. But you guys all have a really interesting perspective. So I'd love for you to just go for it.
I'll jump in. I think that the work from home efforts, I think the genie's out of the bottle, right? I think we're now realized that people do not have to be sitting at their desks from 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever the model is, wherever you are in the world, and us needing to see them for us to be productive and collaborative and efficient. And all of our agencies that I've spoken to all over the world, consistently across the board, they have not lost any level of effectiveness, efficiency, or productivity. In fact, most of it is actually improved. Okay, so I do think from an operating model perspective, you're going to see a massive, massive shift where we're already hearing agencies are not going to require their people to come back to work if they're not comfortable. Okay, and so I think you're going to see a major shift in real estate. Right, and do we need? Many of our agencies are looking to make a smaller footprint. I think the other piece is looking at the role of the fractional workforce. I think that in the past we've had, many agencies might have a contract labor line on their P&L, and when something ramped up really high, we need to bring somebody in. We bring in a freelancer. I think the model of the future is going to be, really moving to a permanency of a fractional workforce where we might be 75% FTEs and 25% fractional, or we might even be a 50-50 model. Because I think why this is going to accelerate is we've proven that our entire workforce can work remotely, right? We've been doing the types of things with virtual happy hours, which we know are getting old, and virtual bingo games and all those things to maintain culture. But we've realized we can have a workforce that's dispersed all over the world and still run an agency. And so as a leader of an agency, you have to start looking at your operating model and say, listen, clients are not throwing more money at me right now. Okay. So if I've got to reduce my full-time staff, reduce my retail footprint, real estate footprint, and then tap into a fractional workforce on a regular basis, they're going to embrace it. And I think the new model, kind of the new role within the agencies that's going to come forward as of this is a hybrid that is, kind of a creative resources manager or someone who's used to managing external development resources, but also has a hint of an HR role of understanding the people side of this and bringing these groups in. We've heard the term gig economy. I saw something the other day in Fast Company calling it the independent economy, right? Using independent fractional talent on a regular basis, but having someone who can embrace them and treat them like an extension of the agency and not just hired guns. I think that's going to be a really important role moving forward.
Agreed. Anyone else in their particular area of the industry seeing how, fractional or kind of the resource models are going to shift and change?
Well, I'll jump in too. I mean, I think just tacking on to what John was saying, I think there's going to be, from a positive standpoint, there's such an importance on specialization. And I think, again, like the curtain's been pulled back on, going to a new business pitch and saying, we do everything. We're all under one roof. We can do whatever you need from a client standpoint. I think this opportunity is allowing us to look and respect specialization a little bit more and have those teams built and curated to service clients' needs moving forward. And I think, the agency as an aggregator for that sort of talent, I think is one of the things that's going to come out of this that will be, a change that lasts a good long time.
Yeah, I think just building on that a little bit, just because I know I've got kind of another unique perspective kind of from where I sit in the situation is, I think moving to that fractional and kind of an increased level of fractional talent is going to also probably need a higher level of engagement with specialists beyond what your core agency specialties are, that aren't even carried from a contract base until it's actually needed. So you can look to teams of, 10, 15, 20, 30 that specifically go full bore on AR or full bore on experience design for a very specific kind of application or product setup. I think that augmenting that way allows people a stronger flexibility to not have to carry a larger overhead load during this time. and really only tap into them as more so like kind of black ops, spec ops type extensions of their teams. But I think a crucial point to that, and Vincent touched on this as well, is transparency in that process. I mean, we're kind of all in this together, and it's hard to be a master of all, and that's where that specialization, both in the agency's competency, but also their specialists that they bring on board, needs to be fully transparent, I think, to the end client for it to be its most effective. Because only if we're at the table with you, when the client asks some very difficult questions in that particular specialization that my company may have, we want to be able to address it immediately and not have to wait, because time is of the essence with a lot of these clients, just as budgets are as well. And I think there's a lot of times that augmentation, maybe to your FTEs, through specialist teams or specialist freelancers, can allow you a flexibility to execute at a much higher level with a lower actual carry of overhead costs to it, so you can run a little bit more nimbly.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add a couple thoughts into the mix as well. Agree on the notion of kind of more fractional workforce, and that's always been a desire in the agency world, and I think we'll continue to move towards that just out of necessity. It won't all be independent contractors or SWAT teams, though. One challenge, just particularly in the U.S., I think that the demand of, or the supply of workers would be there, but health insurance actually still is a big barrier for a number of individuals going pure kind of contract and fractional if they can. So I think that, for the time being, I mean, when people are out of work, they're out of work. So, we'll have a short-term big supply, I think, of freelance talent out of necessity, but the economy will grow again and that freelance talent will get sucked up. And I think that the ceiling for a true fractional workforce is health insurance in the U.S. It's too unstable of a career for many, many people. So I just wanted to make that point. It's just a pragmatic one. I think that agencies are going to continue to look at specialization as an important way to operate. And so the partnership model is going to continue to grow. We're already seeing that within the SOTA community. So, I mean, it still feeds the same narrative, which is I'm going to come in and I can't do all of the work really successfully myself. But, in some cases, rather than a SWAT team or freelance fractional talent that I have, it might just be another partner agency. And so already, even within the SOTA community, we've got agencies who specialize in native mobile app development, or agencies who specialize in, digital product design, or agencies who specialize in digital media analytics, or whatever the case is. We're seeing more partnerships among our members than we have in the past, because I think the bias for many digital shops for many years was to become more and more full service because they felt that was the way to growth, when realistically it was the way to look just like everyone else. And now in this kind of market, they realize, gosh, we just look like a general vanilla full service digital agency, and we're not differentiated enough. So specialization, I do believe, will continue to grow. The other important factor, I guess I'll come at it from the other end of the spectrum, which is, being able to look at your services and provide them in bits and pieces is going to be really, really important. Not only because buyers aren't buying as many full service services anyway, or even end-to-end services anyway. In the short term, some of that's driven by economics. In the medium to long term, that's going to be driven by continued insourcing, at least on the digital side, of portions of digital capabilities by client-side marketers. So they want partners who can plug into a particular slice of the project. So if you're an agency and you're structured that way, you both have an opportunity to sort of better plug into a client-side marketer who's got, a particular need, and you're setting yourself up for sort of better partnership model, partnership opportunities within the broader agency ecosystem because you fit a very specific slice of the pie. So again, I do think that the fractional notion is going to be really important, but I would layer on top of it that, that idea of knowing sort of where you play in that ecosystem and being able to offer your services and in your services in a very fractional way will be very important for success.
Thanks, Tom. That's great. I think, again, first of all, thank you for continuing to help me make the segues. You guys have all been killing it today, so I appreciate that. I'm going to cover off on two quick areas that we definitely want to talk about before we hop off of this, and bring them up because if you feel like it doesn't address a question you have, please put that in the Q&A, and we'll make sure we try to get to that. But one thing I'd like to talk about is what's going to happen to pricing models. The way we're going to market, and is it fee, is it hour, we move to value-based, project-based. So let's cover off some things that we're seeing there, whether it's because of client requests or because we think that's an opportunity to take ourselves to market. Then the other area would be around, space the last one. Let's start with pricing. Pricing model. So what are you guys seeing in your particular areas? And what are people asking for, or what are your partner agencies or your agency taking to market as a solution for them? Vincent, could you hop in on that?
Yeah. Well, I think that there was a tough question that someone posed prior to this about what do we do when clients aren't paying? Because I think that's the reality that we're in right now. Clients not necessarily not paying at all, but slowing down payment terms, changing payment terms, and rightly so. I mean, we're all being dinged from the client side, from the agency side. It's tough when you have a client who seems to be doing well as far as their products need during this time, but you have to understand there's also other financial forces pushing on them as well. I think to me that the solution there is, again, it's kind of a forced change. Like I think project-based work has been something that has been hitting the big agencies for a long time. Whether it's clients coming in and saying, I know you're my AOR, but I'm working with this one group to do this one project because it feels like it's something they should do, and just projects being chipped away from your retainer. I think there's going to be a need to really embrace project work moving forward. And I think with that, looking at the compensation model. So who's actually working on the project? Who does the client need to be paid for? I think a ton of transparency around what we're charging for those people who are working on the project from the agency side. And then what's that project cost? So it's going to, and it's embracing more of a project-based reality. And I think many industries have been having to do this for years and years. If you look at the legal industry, the way that they charge for work, but prior to COVID-19, they were in a system where they went from a lot of retainer work to a lot of project-based. People don't want to pay for conversation, and I think this time and this new normal is going to continue to push that. So to me, I think linking the payment and the slowdown in payment with projects and coming up with a new compensation model, it's kind of now or never, I think, for the industry.
Right. John, what are you seeing in your network?
Yeah. I mean, the project trend's been there for a while here, and I've always felt that you actually have an opportunity to make more money, at least on a percentage basis, doing project work than on retainer work, right? You're sacrificing some margin for the longer term retainer, but in project work, you actually have an opportunity to have higher level margin. So I say lean into it. And I think that what we're seeing is our agencies, everybody's been kind of, let's do value-based pricing. I've yet to see someone come up with a pure model that says, if you look at it as what's the value of the work we're doing? How do you quantify that? There's plenty of models of saying we're going to take a percentage of margin, we'll put it at risk, we'll tie it to sales, and then if we put 10% at risk, we have the opportunity to make 30% of the 20. I'm just using it, right? So those are all out there. But I think the easier answer is getting what we're hearing and seeing from our agencies is establishing a scope, setting a price, and we're managing to that price. All right, we're not going to nickel and dime you on hours. If we solve the problem in a day, or if we solve it in 100 days, we're going to get the same amount of money. And if we make more or less, that's on us on resource management. And what you, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, need to hold us to is, have we delivered on the outcomes that you wanted us to deliver, right? So I think you're seeing more people embrace this notion of shorter term projects, shorter term scopes, define it, here's the price, and let's go. And I think you have to resist, and this is easy for me to say, but I think you have to resist the tendency here, which is, all right, we need to keep the lights on, we need to get the project, we're going to do it really, really cheap. All right, resist. Okay, right now, if you think about the projects that clients are bringing to you and the things that they're asking you to think about, our value in creativity and strategy and our networks has never been more valuable, right? They're asking us to do things that they can't solve internally because we bring it through a creative lens. So why would you dilute that, right? Lean in now more than ever. And I understand that if you're struggling for business, that you're going to say, hey, we'll knock 20% off of this. Just resist to the extent that you can, because it is much easier, much harder, I would say, to bring your prices up later than it is to lower them now, right? So don't go for the quick win necessarily, because I think that's going to be what everybody leans into. And on the extended payment terms, what have you, it's just a squeaky wheel, guys. If you're a smaller agency, you've got to be banging on the door and letting them know that you're there. Because if they're only going to pay the people who are saying we need to get paid. So we can't continue to be banks for the industry. Sorry, my little soapbox there.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good to hear the passion. And I think right now I'd say there are a lot of people looking day to day, and it's harder for them to see a bigger picture. And, that was kind of the point of this thing as well, is just for us to share what we're saying to give some,
Yeah, Josh.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was, if I might, I had some interesting data on just engagement models from our, we do our annual digital outlook study with Forrester. And now this data was actually collected in late Q4 of last year. So it obviously predates COVID and the current situation. But I think is directionally still accurate. One thing I would mention is that, the agency world is going to continue to operate as a mix of models. There's really not going to be one model that is the model for how you price projects and work. That's never been the case. I mean, it may be the case that, if you were a large holding company, you were always pursuing retainers. But I would say in the smaller and mid-sized kind of independent market, we've had for many years already agencies that were project-based, agencies that were retainer-based, agencies that were, especially ones who are, trained in sort of agile methodologies that were based on time and materials, and or more consultancy kind of day rate costs, that were associated with sprints. So there's a host of models that work, and I think that there won't be one that prevails. The smartest one is the one that's best set up for the way that you work, first of all, and two, fits the need of the project. Coming into this year, we had about 60% of agency leaders that already said that their engagement models were changing over the last 12 months. But I think that the data is surprising in some ways, because when we asked them how were their revenue models evolving, 51% said they were getting more project-based work. That makes sense. Although in the digital world, that's always been a prevalent piece. 40% were actually getting more retainer-based work. 29% said more incentive-based work. 28% more time and materials-based work. 22% said, they were doing more work in exchange for equity. That's primarily our agencies who are working in kind of the digital product design area and working with startups. 19% said they were getting more revenue from their own products. And then a nebulous another 12% said they're experimenting with new pricing models. So I wanted to make the point, I guess, that all of the models will continue to be valuable. And it's important to sort of understand how you work and how you're going to market. And then last point I'll make, I do agree with John. I think the value-based pricing piece is very tricky, although there will be more pressure for that value and performance-based pricing. You saw Publicis' big announcement, or that they just did a kind of performance-based money-back guarantee on certain contracts. Those are very, very difficult. I mean, outside of a performance-based media kind of scenario to really price in value, as John mentioned. I even have another data point, which is, 75% of client-side marketing leaders that I've surveyed in my study say that putting a value on design and creative work presents a major challenge for how they compensate agency partners. So they don't know, how to put a value on, design and creative based work. And they're not going to all of a sudden know how to do that tomorrow. So value-based pricing will continue to be a massive, massive challenge, I think, unless you're in a performance kind of media environment.
No, thanks, Tom. I think that's a really good point. And to your publicist point, I've been there. I think sometimes it's challenging when you have folks that have a voice as loud as the holding companies going out and presenting a press release on something they haven't done before that's going to change the industry, and it starts to force everyone else to follow in the wake that for something that again hasn't been tested, hasn't been proven. And more than anything else is, in my opinion, headline grab. So I think I think you made a really good point. Know your business, know your clients, know your model, and know what works best for you. Again, with the segues. So because of that, if you know your model, you know your resource, you know your market, you know your clients, we want to go out and get new business. So, what are we seeing in the way that new business is being attained in the current environment? Are you guys seeing, Vincent, I know you guys had some recent pitches. John, I'm sure that your network, I know Tom Bruce having some great work. Anyone that can kind of share how they're approaching new business at this time, I'd love to hear a little bit of that too.
Vincent, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's obviously a challenge. There's the new business funnel has slowed, if not stopped, in many cases. But the work is out there and it's starting to come back now. I mean, I think prior to this lockdown, you'd see, a lot of what we've been talking about, which is clients asking for, and again, I totally agree with Tom, like there's not one model that fits all, but a lot of the RFPs that I've seen in the last year and a half, 2 years, have been clients asking for different approaches, coming to a big agency and asking for different approaches on pricing, on the way that things are delivered, on the way that things are concepted. I think the challenge is, and I think what we really have to embrace is finding that quotient for the value of creativity and craft, because that's really what they're coming to the agencies for. A lot of big ideas and big thinking is what these clients, what the clients need. So I would say that's the biggest thing I've been seeing is, kind of a redoubling of effort to come up with new creative. And I think in turn, we have to figure out a way to get clients to understand there's a huge value in that. The creative concepting and, owning a concept that, historically we tend to give away the store on our creative craft and what we build, and give everything to the client that we come up with in concept. And I think looking at that IP and that intellectual property, and again, looking at other industries and seeing how are those things valued and what's the basis on that value, I think could help. But yeah, I mean, I think as far as new business, I think we're going to see the pipeline starting to grow quickly here. And maybe I'm being optimistic, but the same messaging has been going on for a lot of these clients now for 60, 90 days. There's going to be pent-up demand, and I think clients are going to need to get their messaging out there. So again, being maybe overly optimistic, I think, hopefully we'll be seeing stuff kind of mid to late summer really starting to hit. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I was on a call with our CFOs from the US, and they're not typically the most optimistic group in general. But what I heard loud and clear from them was that the pipeline's starting again. You mentioned Tom Bruce. They've had some new business wins here recently, and not just on the project side. And so we're starting to see the pipeline fill, as Vincent's suggesting. And I do think we're going to see some recovery here towards the back half of the year, but it's not going to be where we all thought it was. And so, one of the questions was, how do we sell during this time? And I would say that it's never a good time to be selling if you're selling, right? I mean, right now, if you're about adding value, there's never a better time to add value. So whatever you're doing in your prospecting efforts, I would put the lens through it is the email that I'm about to send or the platform that I use for marketing automation about to send. Am I adding value to the recipient, right? And that lens needs to go through it, not just during right now, but I think in new business efforts all along. To my point earlier about the pivot and finding a specialization, I think that right now, any efforts that you're doing on the outreach front, whatever that looks like, need to be leaning into what you're very, very strong at. But I don't think anybody should be just sitting back and saying, "Oh, it's not a good time to sell," right? Well, it's never a good time to sell. But now adding some utility. And the other thing, and Josh, I'll just throw this in because I'm not sure if we're going to get to it later, but retention is the new acquisition. Okay, we spend so much time and energy pitching pieces of business to clients that we've never worked with. It's never paid us a dime because we have the allure of the shiny new penny, right? We're going to bring in new business. But we tell our clients every day it's easier to keep an existing client or customer and to grow an existing customer than go land a new one. If you took 10 to 15% of the effort that your teams put into pitching a new client and then on a new business pitch, and put that into your existing clients, you're going to see a far greater return than going after and pitching someone that you have no relationship with. So as we're talking new business, I would be doubling down on the clients that you have right now, and how do you continue to support them? We had an agency who launched an entire campaign for a client working with their HR department on employee communications during this time, right? Entire new client for them with the existing client, new budget, and a brand new campaign that they were able to launch. So yes, it's great to get new business, but don't forget about growing the ones you have.
Quick follow-up on that one. I was going to go that direction anyway. Investing in pitching right now. So, of course, we all want to grow organically. We know that that's the best place to be. But if RFPs do start rolling through, is this a place to stay in the ground and not be pitching for free? Do we ask for some fee? If we know that the project's $100,000, what level of investment's right for that? Just some areas around there, because I think that would help us some guidance also, because I'm sure there are a lot of people right now that are feeling a little bit desperate to pitch anything and willing to go all in. So how do we keep ourselves on track?
Brady, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least from my position with being, charged with new business for vendor partners to agencies, it's a unique opportunity, because for years, I've tried to position my shops, and my shops have always positioned themselves as being pitch partners, people that are able to come in and add another layer of depth to specific areas of expertise that may not be immediately available to an agency given their current staffing allocations, to actually go out and pitch new business. I think as part of that too, we can sometimes work a little bit more nimbly on certain things, same way that you'd almost kind of engage us on like it were our project in a way. So I think us trying to support agencies in their pitch efforts is a huge place of growth. And I think it should be a huge place of emphasis for partner vendors. And I think with that though, we should also look at, with a lot of the models moving to project by project basis for the way that end clients are working with agencies, I think it allows a unique opportunity that partnering on those pitches can kind of negate that whole triple bid setup, and we can actually start digging in together deeper, more effectively together from the get-go. That ties in then abilities to work and be more transparent with how we can fee structure and work efficiently within budgets that may be put forward for that pitch to make us look more attractive altogether as a whole, than kind of be sidetracked by this kind of game of poker, so to speak, that often happens with the kind of triple bid aspect, or the ask a favor aspect of 3 or 4 vendors during a pitch process that seem to be very typical during more of the retainer era.
Yeah, hey Josh, one thing I'll just real quickly. Here's what I'm seeing about the pitch process itself during this time. It's gotten significantly more efficient, right? I mean, one, the briefs are tighter because some of the projects aren't as big, but clients are being more direct in what they're looking for. There are fewer steps in the process. We're not traveling all over the world right now pitching pieces of business. I think there's a greater sensitivity to the ask of agencies than ever before. And I think the ask is much more precise, right? And I'm hoping, praying that some of these behaviors carry over. Because it's a flawed process, as you know already. But I think there's some upside of what we're seeing on this for everybody, because we're realizing how much waste there's been in this process through having to do pitches through Zoom, and not having the chemistry check sessions and some of those things that they're trying to replicate in Zoom. So I think that's an upside. But unfortunately, there's always going to be somebody who's going to pitch for free, and as long as that's going to be the case, we're all, going to have to make the hard decision. Do we get in the scrimmage or not? And that's going to be, as Tom said, it's all based on your agency and your model. And do you have an expertise and a specialization? Because if you do, you've got more right to say, we don't do this for free, and can charge a premium, quite frankly, for that specialization. So.
That's great. Thanks. I completely agree. It's an interesting time we're in, and but I think it's helpful for everyone to hear what you're seeing from a consistency standpoint. Is how are those pitch processes going? One of my big takeaways, and then I'll leave it up to you guys if anyone has some parting notes, is we've talked about, and collaboration is greatly overused, but if vendors are going to survive, they need to find a way to collaborate with agency partners. If agency partners are going to survive, they need to find a way to better collaborate, not just with the marketing partner in the brand, but maybe across the organization and understanding their business. And all those pieces are going to have to live together and work together more nimbly and more adequately moving forward. I think we covered the bulk of what we needed to cover. Did anyone else have parting notes, glimpses of optimism that you're seeing in your area of the world, so we can all high five and send everyone back into the world?
Come on, Tom, you've been day drinking, so let's hit it.
I wish. Yeah. So, in terms of optimism, absolutely. And I'll echo what, John and Vince and Brady were all saying. We've definitely in our community have seen now an uptick in biz dev opportunities, new pitches, lead generation last just 4 to 5 weeks. And that's been a relief, for many of our members after, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks of just crickets, where, as we mentioned earlier, many marketers just took a pause to kind of assess the situation. We see them getting back in the game. I do think that projects for the time being are going to be smaller. They're going to be more focused. And it's going to force, I think, a really healthy discipline, though, in our businesses. And, the ones who can embrace making some of the changes that they need to their staffing model, to their engagement model, even to the focus of their services, this is a really, really great time to do that. And you're going to come out on the other side much more relevant, in a much stronger position. I think, people always say if change was easy, people would do it all the time. It's not. And sometimes when we're handed these sort of situations, it's just the push that we need. And I've seen that within many, many of our members who said, man, we've been talking about making X change for 18 months. We know we needed to do it. We haven't done it. Now we've executed this particular change over 3 to 4 weeks, and we already feel like we're on a better path. So I think, there's lots of opportunities to look for those changes to make your business better. And I do think the second half of the year is going to pick up a little bit more. Again, it won't be at the pace I think that we were expecting coming into the year. But there will be some momentum in the second half of the year. And I think I ran an agency for many years. I think sometimes all you need is just that next win. No matter how small it is, all you need is that next win to keep optimism high, to keep the team really engaged. And I think you'll see plenty of opportunities to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add one more kind of parting piece that I try to tell to all of my agencies, not just during now in this kind of alternate universe situation that we're in right now, but whenever there is kind of a lull, or whenever there is kind of a blank space that you guys are trying to figure out what to do next, or if you should be doing anything, I always advise the shops that I work with to fill that time with your own projects that develop a competency or showcase a competency of the work you want to be doing as an agency. Using it as time to iterate on maybe a product that could help create alternative income pathways that could be passive over licenses and stuff like that. Find different things that when you're doing them will either make winning business easier or generating income more efficient as you move forward, because sometimes you can create a product that not only creates passive income, but it also makes doing specific project work even easier for you, which increases your margin. So if I can part with any kind of advice, it's don't be idle. Try to iterate, try to experiment, try to develop things that are representative of the future state of the kind of work you want to be doing.
Slam dunk. You nailed it. No, it's a good one. Thank you. Well, we're pushing up on time. I want to thank the panelists. Thank you, Brady, Vincent, John, Tom. Thanks to Alicia and Lily for setting this up on the Media Temple side, for supporting us. To the audience who joined today, thank you again. There's going to be a recording sent out tomorrow. So if you really want to watch it again, it's all yours. And then what I'd also say is, again, take a look at the Media Temple Agency Partner Program. Extremely supportive. They support us in ways like this. For folks in the audience, if you'd like to be on a panel, there may be an opportunity for you to join and do that as well. And just lots of great information. So, for the 100th time, thank you to them for so much for supporting us. Thank you to the panel for joining and sharing your wisdom. And thank you to the audience for spending an hour with us.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, Josh. Thanks, Media Temple. Thanks, John, Vincent, Tom. Appreciate sharing a panel with you.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Media Temple. Peace.
Have a good rest of the day, everybody.
See you guys.